Welcome to the Gospel Works Podcast, where we discuss faith and work. I'm your host, Aaron Giesler, with my good friend and co-writer for this event, Josh M. And today we are... Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Doing so good, Aaron.
That threw you a little bit. So.
It did.
So I say co-writer because we have with us, we're doing another interview, we have with us a local businessman. His name is Lance Blount. He's a good friend of Josh and mine, and he owns a Christian Brothers Automotive. Hey, Lance.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, we're glad you're here. So let's kick it off. We want to hear a little bit about you. Tell us about you, Lance.
Yeah, absolutely. So as discussed, my name's Lance. I originally come from southeast New Mexico, West Texas area, born and raised, and, I went to college, joined the Army, did 20 years in service, retired, came back to New Mexico, and opened a small business here in Albuquerque, Christian Brothers Automotive.
So is that area what we would refer to as God's country, or is that?
Well, I don't know. So
it's sometimes called God's country, sometimes called the sweaty armpit.
Yeah,
it's kind of both.
There's also been other names for it because of the brimstone, fire and brimstone smell.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of sulfur. Big oil field communities down there. It's the main industry, and so actually my family all are for the most part work in and around the oil field. I'm kind of the black sheep. I'm the one that got away.
Hey,
congratulations!
I'm glad you did. So tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I'm married. I've been married 25 years. My wife Jen comes from Portales. We met at New Mexico State in 2001. Got married. I was already in the Army at that point and a student, and she just came with me, and along the way, we had, for the next 17 years, we were in the Army, and my wife had 3 kids, Hannah, the oldest, Sarah, and Jonathan.
And they're all out and about doing stuff?
Yeah, Hannah recently graduated from New Mexico State. She's a nurse here in town at the local hospital. Sarah's still in school down at New Mexico State, and my son's a high school student here in Albuquerque.
Nice. And you own a franchise. You own a franchise. You're a franchisee.
Yes.
For Christian Brothers Automotive.
Yes.
All right. So was that always the plan?
No. So yeah, actually, that's a great question. So about 2015, 16, I was coming towards the end of my Army career.
You didn't want to try to stay in for another 20?
No. At that point, I had done 4 deployments and was looking down number 5, and I decided at that point it was time to call it. Yeah. I had really made a promise to my oldest daughter that she could start and finish in the same high school.
Oh, nice.
And if I would have stayed in, that wouldn't have been possible. So I felt like at that point, my wife and I, we just prayed about it, and the Lord kind of let us out. Like it was that time. We had done our time, and it was time to go home and be near family. We had always been on the East Coast, so we had missed green chili a lot.
Yeah. Had your fill of humidity?
Yeah. Everything's green. You can't find Walmart because you can't see it.
Right.
We were so eager to get back to the Southwest.
All right. So you did 20 years in the Army you said you started off as enlisted. You did the majority of the time as an officer.
I did most of my time as an 17 years. I did as an officer. I retired as a major. And, great experiences, some of the worst experiences of my life, but
highs and lows,
but they also prepared me, for ministry, prepared me for what I do now, in Christian Brothers. And, we found Christian Brothers. We were looking for something to do, like start a second career.
So that was the plan was to, get out of the Army and not just be a retired person.
No, but I could retire, and then I had even leads for jobs, like up in DC or At many of the Army bases, I could do different things, and I just really didn't want that life anymore. I wanted to get away,
Be out of the industry.
be out of that industry as a whole. And I love cars. I've always loved cars. In high school, I took a couple years of auto mechanics, fell in love with it. Always did most of my own maintenance.
Yep.
Even in the Army, I mean, every post has a do-it-yourself bay where you can go rent and do your own work, and it saved a lot of money as servicemen.
Yeah.
And so,
All right. So you knew Christian Brothers was the place for you.
Oh, sorry. So we were getting ready to go, and I had started to look at many franchises.
Okay.
About 12 years before retirement, my wife and I started saving, and we had felt like the Lord had really put on our hearts that hey, you're going to retire at some point, and you need to have a plan.
And so, you're going to retire and be a young man.
Exactly.
In your 40s.
Yeah. I was 45.
Yeah.
And so, I was ready to, there's a lot of other stuff I could do. I always wanted to be a small business owner. My dad was a small business owner down in Hobbs. And so I got to see like the joys of that. You would get to use the things of that business to glorify God. I thought that was super cool. And so still looking into the automotive industry, we were looking, and one day my wife found Christian Brothers. I didn't even find it. She found it.
They weren't very big on the East Coast.
No. We had never heard of them. And even growing up in West Texas, eastern New Mexico, we had never seen one. They were still relatively small at the time. They started in 1983 out of a men's Bible study in Houston. And so most of the stores were concentrated in that Houston area, and they just kind of grew out.
I remember in 2004 or something, I saw my first one, and we lived kind of near one in Dallas.
Yeah.
In the far north, and that was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And I didn't know I didn't know it was a franchise. I just thought it was
right. Yeah.
Joe and John Christian,
Right. That's a common question. People come in and they're like, "Oh, are you one of the brothers?" And it's like, technically, yes, but not by last name.
So tell us about Christian Brothers, because
Yeah.
it's a pretty, it's there's more to it than just meets the eye. It's not just John and Joe Christian, the two brothers starting a company.
Right. Yeah, like I had mentioned before, our founder, Mark Carr, amazing man. He was in a Bible study, in 82, 83, I guess, and they were looking for an opportunity to open an auto shop. It was during the oil crisis. Jobs weren't the greatest during that time, especially in Houston. And they were going to start this car business, this auto car repair business, and they're kind of talking about what to call it. And what I understand is the Bible study or Bible study leader suggested the name of Christian Brothers because they were Christian brothers, and they had full intent of going in to glorify God with this,
Wow.
So the name just stuck, and the intent with Christian Brothers was always to give God glory. Quoting Mark Carr, he always, told the franchisees is, be careful what you do because Christ's name's on the building.
Yeah, in big green letters.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I just loved about the company, because I had applied it at a few others, Meineke, Midas, and there's one out east that wanted to come to New Mexico. And they all accepted me, and it was kind of like, yeah, just here, give us your money, and then go do your store, and good luck. Here's some assets that we'll provide, but just pay your royalties and have a great day.
So Christian Brothers was different than that.
Christian Brothers was different. They generally cared about the people that they wanted to make sure that their franchisees cared about the people that they employ and the people they serve. It was a heart more for people than it was just cars. They don't just chase the dollar, because that's what a lot of in the automotive industry, a lot of times they chase the dollar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard that 99% of all the automotive shops give the other 1% a bad name.
That is true a lot of the time.
I mean, I know being familiar with Christian Brothers, and just even being around it, they're like, I think their slogan or their motto or something is like a nice difference.
Yes, nice difference, and
and they want to be different.
Yes,
and so, but it sounds like from the very top to it's from the franchise application all the way down, they want it to be a difference.
Yes, absolutely. They want every Christian Brothers. We have over 300 stores now across the nation, and they want every one of those stores to be a light in their community. And they do that through different ways. Some provide oil changes, to single moms, single dads, people in need. They work mainly more than anything. They partner with churches, and that is probably the thing that excites me more. Is that we use the resources that God has given us as franchisees to help churches.
Yeah. Well, and I know, here at Grace Church, we've experienced that. So, you went into that you went into the franchise process knowing you were going to get a franchise to do automotive something.
Correct. Yeah.
But you also wanted your faith to be a part of that?
Yeah. Well, that was the thing is, it was funny because like in the Army, how you, lead your troops is very different. And you had to, the chaplain was really the only one that was allowed technically to share, openly, proselytize, as they say in the military. But there were ways that I always found to do it. It's in not covert, but just in life, right?
I mean,
the way you act.
Yeah, you're just not overt. Like you are, you do it appropriately.
You do it appropriately, right? And with grace and honor and with the joy of leading people to the Lord, because eventually, people watch you as a leader, and then they see you, and then if they see how your life is and how you respond, eventually life falls apart for even them. Mm-hmm. And if you look like a stable person, they may come ask you.
I'll have what you're having.
Yeah, exactly. Why do you look like you're so calm? Why are you, and it's Christ, and it's that opportunity. Now coming into the civilian world, I didn't know how exactly that was going to work in corporate America or working for a franchise. Yeah. I mean, I knew I could start my own thing, but I had just spent 20 years in the Army.
Yeah.
Very
strict regulations.
Very strict. I kind of would like a little help, so the franchise was a perfect fit for me.
Well, tell us about your faith, because you've talked about it a lot. So tell us about your journey to finding Jesus and your journey. You talked about doing ministry. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I came to know the Lord. It was Easter Sunday, 1995. I was in my first year of college. I had just gotten out of high school, and all my friends went to other schools, and I was the only one that went to like a little community college. And I was all alone. Was a kid that was more into partying and rodeos and going having fun, being a 18, 19-year-old kid. And and then one Sunday, I just felt that hole in my heart. Like for once in my life, I didn't have my friends and everybody around me, and felt the Holy Spirit really pull. And when the pastor gave the invitation, I practically ran to the front and came to know the Lord Jesus, and have, been following him ever since.
31 years. It's about to be 31 year anniversary.
Right. And so I came to him at 19, and I was chasing the world before that. And then, I realized, and I had my grandparents who lived down in Eunice were great examples as a kid for me as Christians. They, were members of the local church and always participated. And I just loved hanging around with them. They were just great godly people. And, it's kind of one of those things I wanted to emulate. But I wanted, and I watched my grandfather too. He had several rent houses down there in Eunice, and and he would like give people breaks, and if he knew guys lost their jobs, he would, not charge them rent for a little bit and help, because it was always like, what would Christ do? Like, these assets technically are his. Even though they're my rent houses, they're technically his rent houses. And what would he do?
Right.
That's a good, man. That's valuable.
Right.
And getting that example.
Yeah, exactly. And so as a kid, I watched my grandpa really give to the church, and really, like, one of the rent houses was the parsonage. So he gave. Wow. So any pastor that came into the local church got one of his best 3-bedroom house.
Man, what a legacy.
And just watching him do that, because he was, like I said, he was an oil field worker who did not trust banks. Grew up in the Depression.
Yeah,
and
he wasn't a Richie Rich guy.
No. He grew up. He came from like Beaver County, Oklahoma, back in the 20s. And
Beaver, still much not there, Beaver County.
Yeah, and so came down to Eunice, New Mexico, and he was in the World War II, but then after the war, he got, he was just there in Eunice, and he did not trust banks, and was like looking for a way to retire, and was a Christian, and was like wanted to be. And kind of had that idea, I think, of like, whatever the Lord gives me, I too will use to bless.
Man.
And that was always kind of his legacy that I observed and truly try to follow.
So you become a Christian.
Yeah.
95.
Yeah.
So you like what you're in college. What happens after that?
Yeah. So after 95, so I go to college. I transferred to New Mexico State and joined a local campus ministry, Campus Crusade. At the time, it was called, it's Crew now. But and I had some men that were a little older in the faith, and the staff that really poured into me. Helped me mature as a believer, taught me the disciplines of your Christian faith, like when to fast, when you should be praying. What do you pray for? How do you pray? Like, don't always pray for yourself. The simple things, right?
That's my favorite topic to pray for.
Right. The discipleship piece. I really, they had really done that well. And for my wife too. My wife we met through that campus ministry.
I know Crew or Campus Crusade is also very strong on evangelism.
Correct. Yeah, they very much so. They I don't know anymore, but their mission used to be to turn students into lifelong Christ-centered laborers. And as a laborer in Christ, if you're going to do that lifelong, what do you need to be equipped with?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the training philosophy I felt like that Crew had at the time was, you train them up and you launch them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go from seeing your grandpa, having that great model, become a Christian. Now you get this effective training that you know about discipleship. You know how to reach people. You're not scared to just start conversation. I mean, the Crew guys that they're not scared to just go up and talk to somebody about Jesus.
No. That's one of the things that they were great is and you start off small but if you hang out for long enough, you're sharing your faith with someone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was the goal. And so we'd find the most outlandish ways to do it at times.
So then you go into one of the most restrictive organizations.
Right. Most restrictive, and how and even Crew at the time had a ministry called military ministry that kind of paralleled, young officers at that time, and they had a lot of great. I remember they assigned me a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force that was at another base as a mentor.
Yeah.
Just to kind of speak into your life, like, hey,
maybe how to help navigate some of that.
Some of that stuff, yeah, because some of that stuff, there's a lot of politics, right? I mean, even when I was in, I feel like maybe there may be more now, but like as a Christian, I mean, I was discriminated against, very clear. I mean, I had people tell me to my face.
Sure, I mean, even in that setting, it's like everybody kind of knows what they can get away with, and I'm sure it's not uniform, even though they try to make it that way because different people have different standards and different people have different preferences.
Right. And so that was always, like I remember even with, local churches that we would serve at while we were, at those bases, we would always have, because there was always counseling with that, like with other believers of like, hey, my boss, like I know we had one NCO at one time, his boss did not want him to pray for this event that they were having in Jesus' name. Like he did not want the commander to say those words. And he goes, you can say anything, but you cannot use the name of Jesus. And, so the NCO, he really thought it over, really. So he ended it in kind of like, I think he used every name but Jesus. Is like the Alpha, the Omega.
He went through the whole list.
The whole list.
Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God.
The Lamb of God. I mean, he used every name. But Jesus' name.
He did. I mean, it's also I feel like half of the military is just figuring out like, okay, I can't do that. I'm going to do. How do I go around this thing?
And so that I always use that as an example, but that's kind of how you had to do stuff sometimes, because you would be told like, do not. I mean, I was told that too.
Yeah. So you have this military career, and tell us how that prepared you, both in faith and just in leadership. Because I know the military's, especially the Army, is a pretty world-class training program for leadership. How did it prepare you to do your work?
Oh, absolutely. So for me, I was an infantry officer when I became an officer. And so infantry officers are kind of the jack of all trades. They learn a little bit of everything. The Army has they call them branches within that. So everything generally supports the infantry, whether it's aviation to JAG Corps to everything supports what the infantry is supposed to do on the ground.
Because the infantry they're the primary weapon.
They're the primary weapon. You can't control ground unless you have boots on it. Yeah, right. That's the general rule of thumb. So within that broad spectrum, as an infantry officer, you're not trained to just train your guys to go to combat. You're also trained to go do admin duties and all these other things. And so an example would be, during my younger years, professional development, I got an administrative position for a year. Like I was a adjutant general officer, which is like the AG, the guys that do all the paperwork. Yeah.
Yeah. Sign up for the Army, guys.
Yeah.
You'll get to do paperwork for a year.
Yeah. I was not happy. I was super upset about that. Like but I got picked because I was the top performer, and they wanted, because that section did all the awards. They did all the OERs, the NCO, all the evaluations, all the stuff, all your paperwork that the Army controls, goes through the adjutant general section.
The Army runs on paperwork.
This was early 2001, 2002. So there was only a few computers in each battalion at that point. And so, I think I had one, but it was, and so, I got put in charge of that section to make sure it ran right until an actual AG officer came in.
Wow.
Like, because there's actual officers that control those sections. And so if in an infantry battalion, if they don't have someone to fill it, they'll take a top performing officer and say, figure it out. And it better not skip a beat.
Wow.
And so I got a lot of those hey you jobs over my years. And so
that sounds very familiar.
That also sounds like running a small, when you put on the janitor hat whenever your cleaning the cleaning crew didn't show up, or then you put on the IT hat whenever your computer is on the fritz, and then you put on your owner hat when.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because that was one of the things that the Army did is, every 3 years you're changing the duty station. But not only you're changing the duty station, you're changing the job. Like you're doing something different. Huh. And so you're constantly being developed. And so, by the time I got out, running a small business was not real hard. Honestly.
Yeah.
Just some of the things that, it was hard in its own ways. Because, it's like, am I going to have customers? Am I going to have this?
I mean, but it's not overwhelming. Like the organization is, a small business by its very nature is smaller than the military.
Yeah, it was one of those things that, like, by the time I get done with that 20 years of service, I was carrying a huge rock that I was able to throw away. I pick up a new one. It's small and it's heavy, but it ain't as heavy as the last one.
Right.
But it's different. And there are challenges to my faith in the business in this new career, because there's new problems, right?
Yeah.
New things. But the Army did, instill that idea of like, hey, there's a solution to everything if you're willing to keep trying.
One of the things that I've been impressed with that the Army instilled in you, because you've told me about it, is how the Army trained you to always be looking for potential.
Yes.
In every subordinate, in your case now, every employee, but before it was every person that was a lower rank that you were in charge of. I mean, tell us a little about like looking for potential in folks.
Yeah. I would say that one of the things that happened early in my career is I had some great officers that mentored me, and one told me very early, the Army evaluated us on performance, like what our performance was over the last year, but then the potential. And the potential rating was one of the most important ratings, because you could screw up and fix yourself over a year. There's different things you could do. You could shine. But if you don't have the potential for growth, if you don't have the potential. And so one of my first commanders pulled me in his office when I had to write my first evaluation. It was for an NCO, and we're going down and we're talking, and then he starts asking me about, well, what's his potential? And I'm like, what you talking about, sir?
Yeah, here's what he did. What do you got?
Yeah. Well, he's like, no. He's like, in every one of those actions that you observed, did you see the potential for growth to become better? And then the question is like, because then after the potential is evaluated, then it's just a matter of motivation, But is the potential there for that subordinate to advance and make the Army better? Because that's what we're wanting to do is with these evaluations, is not just say, hey, you suck, or hey, you did a great job. It's, hey, here's your potential, and we're wanting you to get.
Yeah, here's your performance, but maybe more importantly, here's how far we think you can get.
Right. And so at that moment, he began to mentor me in like, hey, how do you evaluate potential? And you got to evaluate that just like performance, because those are glimpses like that you see in subordinates' actions throughout a year. And it's like, okay, even in the wrong choice, like if the wrong choice was made, was there a logical, problem-solving process? Right. Or did he just wing it?
Yeah. Can you dig into that? Just give us a concrete example, either from the military or from Christian Brothers. Like this is what happened, and this is what I saw that indicated to me. Because I think a lot of people are on both sides of that equation. They're like, okay, raising up people that can climb the ladder is not easy, and also figuring out how to climb the ladder is not super easy. So anytime we can get some insight into how folks look at promotion.
Yeah, I would say a couple things. Okay, so first, it's multifaceted, so it can't be just on observation only. There has to be engagement, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, am I watching over the year? Is this person tracking on these things to be better?
Right.
It's that, that those conversations in passing of like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And then eventually steering the conversation to a specific point that you want to know. Like, hey, what would you do if you got sent to, NCOSC school? What would you do if you got a slot at such and such, right. It's like, especially like, I'll give you an example. Like, in the Army, especially during the war, getting schools was super easy, because the Army felt like the more that, their soldiers were trained, the better equipped they were for the battlefield, right? So, but dudes would just get burnt out from training. Just because it was ad nauseum. Right. And so you would go down. So this is an example, young platoon sergeant, amazing guy. He probably led my best platoon. I had a reconnaissance. I had two reconnaissance platoons in a mortar section.
Right.
And so, and the thing was, this platoon sergeant just loved to do one thing, and that was train his bubbas and go to war. Don't
put him in the attention generals
position. Yeah. If it had anything to do with dog and pony show, or any of our marching, any of the stuff that we have to do in the Army, he wanted nothing to do with it. But if it was about going to the range and sleeping in the mud and just living the soldier's life, he ate it up. He was the guy that got the general officer of the post to know my name, which you don't want, because he was running his platoon in gas mask and M4s in the morning for PT because he thought it would be fun. He would train them like special forces. We weren't special forces, but he would train to that level of intensity. And the thing is during that whole, there was no, I didn't have to motivate him. I didn't have to, and I'm looking at this guy, Salkonovic. He retired as Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major Salkonovic, and called him Sergeant Sal. And that dude, was not going to leave that position unless someone made him. But I got to know Sal. I got to, as my platoon sergeant. And it's hey man, what, because I saw his potential of if he took that to another unit, took it to it would affect more people, and that's where you evaluate to a higher position. So those are the kind of things, and then you walk up to him, you're like, hey, Sergeant Sal, what would you do if you got put up on, brigade staff and had to do the NUG work, doing all the computers and stuff like that, and he just, said a few superlatives it just would rather just, go get shot and do that. But,
shoot, put me in a firefight. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but, at some point, it was actually during our third deployment, I shifted him over. I got rid of him, for his own good, to the battalion ops section, because that was the next level of his career development. He just refused to go. Yeah. And he was mad at me initially for about a month. He wouldn't talk to me. Which, hey, but
small price to pay.
But he went on and became a command sergeant major, I believe up to brigade. He influenced a lot of soldiers. Right. And and that's one of the things about evaluating potential. I use this story as an example, is because it's also I could see this guy had obvious potential, and he was producing for me and making me look outstanding, and had been for about a year, and I had about a year to go, and I had a choice. I could either kick him up to the next level and make my life harder, or I could keep him all through the deployment. He'd love me. I'd love him, but it wouldn't be better for his future. Because the next guy that would come in after me would just keep him where he was, because he would want to keep him there too. And I felt like as a Christian, that was an injustice to him as a leader. And that's the part about evaluating potential that's so important for Christian leaders, is because you've got to be ready to sacrifice as a Christian. As you're the leader evaluating, you need to be prepared to sacrifice and have pain to allow someone to go to the next level.
Because I think we all have seen organizations that, what's it called, the Peter Principle, where you promote incompetent people. That's kind of like you're promoted to your highest level of incompetency or something. But why does that happen? Is people, I think I see two reasons. One, I see bosses evaluate performance only and not potential. And they go, oh, this person is really good at this. They're really good at this level, whatever they're doing. So they're gonna, this is just how it works. You go to the next level, and then they get stuck at that level because they didn't have the potential to reach that thing, but they get promoted anyways because that's kind of, that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's not good. But then, because in the military, I think they try to not. I mean, that's the principle is not to promote somebody that doesn't have potential. Correct.
Correct. Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, if you ever got, a bad mark on potential or a less than stellar, it was a nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Your
So
career
you were just going to kind of stay there, and you
weren't going any forward. And in the Army, it's up or out. Like, if you're not advancing to the next rank, you got to get out.
So, and I know most businesses aren't like that, but I think some people would be. If you run a business, it might be wise to keep somebody in a spot even if they're a high performer but have low potential.
Yeah.
But I also see on the other side of that, people promote bad people up, keep going because they want to keep their team of high performers.
Right.
And so they'll go, if I have 3 people, I'm going to take, this guy right here, he's the lowest performer. These other 2 make me, Jim and Jane, they make me look great. So I'm going to keep them right where they're at. And I'm going to promote this other guy, and he's going to go be somebody else's problem.
Right. Exactly. And you can do the same thing in small business.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll give you a prime example. I mean, I've seen it, I've only been open since 2018. In June is when we opened. And I've gone through a lot of staff over that time. And I'll tell you now, because I am a firm believer in, you've got to have the right people on your team. Like, that's just the bottom line. Like, the Army's a little different where, you got who you got, and you can't switch them out if you don't like them, You
can't just put another LinkedIn.
Yeah. You can't just go hire and get someone else. But your team, because even with that, if you don't like your team where it's at, that's your problem. That's not the team's problem. Because that's what a lot of guys do is they'll blame the team, and they don't realize, like, I don't got the right people on my team. Right. And they blame the team member, but the team member has reached the max of his potential in whatever that task is. Right. And it may be the potential at that moment because of whatever circumstances are going on in his life.
Yeah, we're family stuff or,
Right.
Or trying to finish school or whatever it is.
Because the evaluating potential is such an arbitrary thing, right? But you got to use good things. Like, there's certain things that when you look at potential, if it's a dip in performance, you evaluate, well, what's going on in that person's life, right? Mm-hmm. Like what kind of things are and like, as a Christian, like, where do I give grace? Like, where do I give understanding and, rule justly with this?
We'll talk about that as a Christian.
Yeah.
Because, 20 years in the military and now 8 years running a business, you've done a lot of performance evaluations and potential evaluations. Yeah. How do you do that as a Christian and not just go, well, for this evaluation, I'm gonna, if I could, or, I mean, maybe you can't, it's like, I'm going to set aside Jesus and, just go, well, I'm going to evaluate him like Jesus would. Like, I don't know that, how do you do that?
Yeah. No, I think that's a super fair question, right? Because as a Christian business owner, it's like, hey, do you bring in, all Christians? Or do you bring in, do you bring in, like, who do you, who's the kind of people that you want, in this? And I'll say that, like, as a believer, I'm going to follow Christ in what I just want my team to follow me, but I want them to be the absolute best at what they do, and their potential to be have great potential. And so when I say the best at what they do, what I mean by that is that they have the potential to be the best. They're not there, but there's a lot of work we got to do to get there. They, I think of some guys I've got on the team now. I've got guys that, have the potential to run their own store one day, and I am working and praying that they do, and making sure, but this is where I evaluate potential is I pull my guys in and have like real conversations with them. It's like, man, how you doing? I give them like this, there's this inventory sheet, just to get the conversation going. Like, hey, I call it a fear inventory. And it's like, hey, how are you doing with these things? And answer what you want, but like, we're here to talk about your future. Like, what classes do you need this next year to excel and get to the next level? And where do you want to be in 5 years?
Right.
And, I got guys that say, hey, I want to be sitting in your seat in 5 years. Well, I could take that as a fence.
That's a
threat or a fence, or I could say, I would love for you to take my place in 5 years, but I'm going to get better where you can't. But I tell you what, if you're really serious about it and you perform and you get to that level, I'm all about helping you go out on your own.
Right.
Right. Like telling the guys like, hey, even some of my technicians, right? Like as they increase to level, within my organization, I only got so many leadership slots.
Yeah.
Okay. It would be selfish of me as I grow these guys and train them up to just keep them on my team forever. I mean, that would be great, but I want them to have their own leadership if they want it. Right.
Right.
Yeah. You're not kicking it, but it's like you're going to help them get where they want to go.
Right. Exactly. I can give you an example, like my service manager, great guy. He's been with me he started off as a service writer, and he's been the service manager now for a few years. And, he is told me flat out, in about 10 years, he wants to move back to Colorado and, go up there and start his life up there with his new wife. And I'm like, dude, 100%. How do we set you up for success to make that transition well? Right. And get, not only get you up there, but then get you a job that you want. Right. And I think I want to help him do that. Yeah. Even as he helps me succeed, my goal would be to help him do that.
So that seems counterintuitive a little bit. So you have this pattern that I see in Christ, where he, trains up just the disciples, and even in the middle, like sends them out, and they come back. But then he said, "Listen, I'm sending you out for real now."
Yeah.
You see that. You see in Campus Crusade, very, very similar. Like, we're going to train you up. We're going to raise you up. You're going to be an integral part of this ministry, in New Mexico State or wherever the ministry is.
Right.
And then we're going to launch you, and we may see you again. We may see you in heaven.
Yeah.
It's one of those two, that's. And then in the military, you had the same thing where even Sergeant Sal, even if you'd have stayed in for 10 more years and he'd have stayed in for 10 more years, he probably would have never worked for you again.
No. Yeah.
And now, even with Christian brothers, you have people that, that say, "Oh, I want to sit in your chair. I want to sit in, I want to sit in an owner's seat. I want to go somewhere else. I want to." How do you maintain a positive attitude? How do you keep pushing people to do the things they achieve without feeling like, man, I'm really messing myself over?
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like with that, it's kind of the mindset of, there's a certain point where I have enough. Like, I don't need anymore. I need other people to succeed. And I find joy in watching other people succeed. And, and I think that's one of the things I find personally, and for someone that doesn't kind of feel like, I would ask them to really evaluate that threat, right? Like really evaluate, like, is your employee really threatening your position? And then the next question is, why do you not care about his good?
Ooh.
So those would be the two questions I would ask anyone that had the mindset that it's like, I don't want my employees to succeed.
Right.
Is like, what are you afraid of, and what do you got against their good?
See, and I think that is such a faith-based answer. It's based in humility. I mean, I had somebody, we launched this campus a year ago down in the South Valley, and I had somebody ask me, "Man, you sent your best person down, like Braden was preaching here.
Yeah.
He was a lot of people's second. Well, sometimes he was their first. He was sometimes first favorite. But it's like, he was our favorite guy to listen to. He played it. He plays a guitar at an incredibly high level. He can lead worship. He sings and people love him.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why did you do that? It's like, because he doesn't want to be up here forever. He wants to pastor a church.
Yeah.
And I just know I got such a thrill
right
out of seeing him do that. It's a little addicting, I think.
Yes, it is, right? It's one of those things where, because, I mean, and that's the thing, especially when you do these things as a Christian, I mean, you should be looking out for everyone's good in that thing. Like, hey, and that's one of the things, like at Christian Brothers, like when we evaluate a car, I mean, sometimes we got to give really bad news. We're not going to sugarcoat it and say, hey,
that's loving. That's the loving thing to do.
That's the truth is like, hey, this thing is really doing bad. And it's going to take a lot to, at that point, we're just like, take it down to CarMax, trade in.
Just immediately. Yeah.
Just, you don't owe us anything. Just please go drive it down there and trade it in.
Yeah. So let's kind of switch now, because, you brought that up. What are some of the biggest challenges you face as a Christian business owner in a industry that is not always known for the most Christ-like practices?
Right. Well, that's the funny part is like, we had mentioned earlier, there's only like one shop that makes the 99 look bad. There are a ton of great shops out there and dealerships too. A lot of times it's all about pricing and diagnostics. Those are the two major friction points in our industry a lot of times, and where a lot of people lose trust, right? Because they'll believe like, hey, the technician didn't know what he was doing because he obviously can't find it, right? The diagnostic he can't pinpoint, or that is outrageous for that, right? And generally those are the two things. And so, as a Christian, it's very unique being a car, in the car industry or repair industry. Sometimes we get compared to like Chick-fil-A, which is not a fair comparison, because when I go to Chick-fil-A, I'm pretty happy about it. When
Always.
When I go to the car shop, people don't go to auto repair shops happy. Those are not happy purchases.
No, right. I look at that as like, that's not like a remodel. That's like a new roof. Like, I mean,
right.
it's real expensive, but nobody's like, oh man, they'll be like, oh, cool new shower, cool new kitchen.
Right.
No one ever says like, oh, that roof's looking pretty good.
Yeah. Nobody says those are nice brakes.
Yeah. No one even sees them.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that, it comes a lot of mistrust, a lot of speculation, and a lot of miscommunication. And a lot of times that you will find that is like 90% of the problems in the industry.
So how do you overcome that?
Yeah. And so a part of that, as what we believe at Christian Brothers, is that you spend the time with the customer to educate them, help them understand, certain things about their vehicles. And I give you an example. Like, people will buy a Land Rover, even a used Land Rover.
Don't do that, people.
Yeah. And that vehicle, brand new, is $100,000. And it's like, and then they had like a Honda Accord before that, and they know what brakes cost on a Honda Accord, but they don't know what brakes cost on a Land Rover. And and they show up and it's like $2,000 more, and it's like, because it's a Land Rover. And
I had a friend buy a really nice BMW, and he got new rotors, and they were $8,000. It was $2,000 a piece for each rotor.
Yes.
And he's like, and he had come from, a reasonable car. And he was like, I was not ready for this.
Yeah. And so, but with those things comes that, like, that rational communication, right? Like the thing that Christianity, I think, is first and foremost about, right? Honesty, truth, and grace. Like, right, all of those things are, because there's grace with the situation of like, hey, this really stinks that these cost a lot. But unfortunately, this is what they cost and what it will take to repair the job. Honesty with that. And it's like, hey, I can give, sometimes we can give price breaks, and if we can pass that on to the customer, we will. And we're always trying to find the best. Where it gets tricky in our industry is there's also different grades of parts. And there's other franchises out in Albuquerque and across the United States that don't use the same level of parts. Christian Brothers, I'll tell you right now, if you want to stay a franchisee, you better get the most premium parts, because we do not put on junk.
Well, that's something I've noticed about Christian Brothers, and even what you've told me, and doing some research about it. Christian Brothers, as a repair shop, is not competing with the guy downtown that has a one car, a one bay
mom and pop shop.
You're not competing with Jiffy Lube. You are competing with the dealerships. Essentially,
yes. Because if we're going to talk about capability, it's either a top tier shop in town, like a super top tier, or the dealerships. Because as Christian Brothers, we're required as part of the franchise to have electronic diagnostic equipment for every make, every model.
Wow.
The factory stuff, not the aftermarket stuff. We have to buy.
Not the Amazon special stuff.
Not the Amazon special stuff. And so we invest a lot of money into our diagnostic. So our technicians don't have to buy it. Because a lot of technicians out in. So, one of the misconceptions, and I want to clarify this real quick, in the technician world is technicians, first, they use their own tools. Like they bring their own tools. They're professionals. They're paid on a flat rate basis. They're not hourly. And so they're paid by the job. So if it's a water pump and it calls for 6 hours, if it takes him 3 hours or it takes him 8 hours, he's only paid 6, what the job is called for.
And that's standardized through a system.
Yeah, that's standardized. And it's that way for the customer's sake, because if you got an hourly technician, you would be robbed. Yeah. Because they would not hurry to get your job done. They would, and this is the other thing is at Christian Brothers, if they didn't do it right the first time, they got to do it for free the second.
Ooh.
So
yeah, because you also not only do you have a high level, you also have an incredible warranty.
Correct. Yes, it's 3 years, 36,000 miles, whatever comes last, not
Holy
first.
Mackerel.
So that because that's the kind of parts we stand behind, and the people that we hire, and the education,
craftsmanship, and all that stuff. Yeah,
right. Like I know this year I'm sending at least 4 guys to training, and I got a staff of 10, so I got 4 to 5 guys every year that go to training outside New Mexico. I had to fly them somewhere.
Yeah, big training.
Big training. Yeah, some of it's dealership stuff. We want our guys to be the absolute best in their area. Yeah.
So how do you deal how do you deal with customers who you said you educate them? How do you educate them in a way that honors God?
Yeah. Great question. I think with that is that we take the way that it's seen, I believe at our higher level, at our home office, is it's seen like, you do everything you can, and we're going to support you with resources. And so they actually do give us some animation stuff that they've had built professionally, that works really well, that we can send to phones and computers and be like, hey, watch this minute video.
Here's how a catalytic converter works and why you need one.
And why you need one, and what happened to yours. And, and it's like, after you, let's sit down and talk, or, let's talk about it. And so, so that is kind of what the home office really equips each Christian Brothers with the tools.
And that's different from a lot of other franchises.
Yeah. And then as franchisees, this is where we've implemented. And sometimes we're not the best, because guys get super busy and they'll forget to attach a video. But when they call a customer, we send a digital vehicle inspection. It's like a little sheet that has red, amber, and green, basically saying like the status of a multi-point inspection. Essentially, we call it a courtesy inspection.
And little videos, like I've gotten several of them, little videos with problem areas and explainers.
Yes, and so because that's one of the things is like, hey, if this pump is leaking, if your power steering pump's leaking, we want to show it to you. So here's a picture of it. Here's leaking. We can see the drips. That we need to replace it. We want you and we want to walk, and the service writers will walk through the customers with that to make sure it's like, hey, Mr. Giesler, this is you see in that picture is your power steering pump. How familiar are you with your power steering pump? And if the guy goes, I'm good, I understand, they'll just move on to the next one. But if we really want the customer to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And we'll sit there.
I steer it myself. I don't even have power.
Yeah. And so we'll take the time to sit there and really go through and help them understand.
And that's like you said, that is, it's honesty and it's truth, which is a gospel principle, right? Yeah. Like, I would say that, it's one of those things being a business owner, period, is, letting the gospel govern your life, because you've got to make decisions all day long. Influence from the littlest to the smallest to the biggest thing, and it's always about what is honoring Christ, whether Christ's name is on your building or not. Yeah, that I think that's where the rubber meets the road. Well, no, yeah, and I've seen that done really well. I know one of the things that you had talked about that was intriguing to you about Christian Brothers is they encourage you to work through churches.
Yes.
So would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that Christian Brothers really does is like, we're not a church unto ourselves. Like we are a for-profit business. And
what? You're trying to make money?
Yeah, we make money.
Yeah.
And our goal is to help build the gospel in our local communities. Yeah. And the first line of defense with that is always your local churches, like whatever they're doing on the ground in your local area. And that's the front line. Like that's where, if you're a Christian business owner as a whole, it doesn't matter. Like you're first front line is like, where's the churches in your business area? Like where can you leverage your assets or that you steward, for God's glory, and do it through churches, because the problem is a lot of times too, and Christian Brothers have seen this, is that if you try to do ministry apart from a church, you get wrapped up in ministry. Because you got a lot of assets, and the moment you start helping, there's a lot of people that need help.
Right.
And the line gets longer. The line gets longer, and you don't have time. And so, I don't want them to come to my shop on Sunday. I'd rather them come to the church on Sunday. So go through the church as a Christian business owner, let the church leverage those assets to bring people to God. And really, because sometimes, and I've seen it in Christian business, they feel like they're a ministry unto themselves, which is good, but you could be a force multiplier. And and I bring it back to like Paul talking about, us being soldiers. Being a soldier for 20 years, I can tell you there's a lot of structure,
Right.
and just like before, like my small business has several assets that I can leverage for the church's needs or whatever it could be, or I could do it for my own glory. But if I do it for the church and His glory, the Lord's glory, then it's not a full-time ministry, because then people start showing up and like, oh, I hear you doing this, and it's like, but I want them to come to church on Sunday. I want them to plug into a Bible study. I want them to meet people. You can't do that on my shop on Sunday. And you can't do it at your business. So like as a business owner, that's where it's more of our responsibility to leverage our assets through the church.
Well, and I know that even from the very top, from Christian Brothers at the very top, they encourage you guys to work through local churches, through y'all's National Service Day. Y'all have several things that y'all have done. How important is it as a small business owner to find a local church that matches not just your theology, but your your practice. I mean, to have a church that aligns with what you're doing and how you want to function.
I would say it's immensely important because it's like, I would equate it a lot to like, the parts of the body, right? Mm. And if you're the eye, you need to be in the right eye socket, and so I would say, for me, Grace Church is our church, and because we were very ministry aligned in the things that we want to see happen here in Albuquerque. And I would say is if you're a Christian business owner, go meet the pastor, find out what they're about. Well, find out what that church is about. What are they doing on the ground? What are they? Are they sending people? What is their vision? Where do they hope to be in 10 years? Right? Like, what do they hope God's glory looks like in 10 years for their church? And I feel like as a Christian business owner, because like as a steward of those assets, you got to ensure that you're investing those well, right? Yeah. And not just hiding them under the porch.
Right. Well, I know it's happened more than one occasion. I mean, I know it's happened to you, but but I know several other small business owners who say, you know what? I mean, I want, I have the know-how, I have the resource. Like, I have a lot of things that I would like to see happen, but the church just isn't interested. Like, I want to see evangelism, but the church really isn't interested. I want to see outreach. I want to see, and I know that even, like part of your story and part of, there's several Christian business owners that I know that have said, you know what, I had to go and find a church, not like theologically, every church you pretty much have gone to has lined up with your theology, but you had to find a church that was lined up with you in practice. And once you found that, I've seen that multiplication factor happening with you, where it's not just like Christian Brothers gets better too. And Grace Church gets better.
Yes.
And people see, like, they catch the vision.
Yeah.
Where even you've had some employees go, oh, I like doing some of this work to help out. Well, this good thing.
Exactly. Well, it's one of those things where even, like my staff, if they see someone in need, they will be like, hey, boss, like because we do more than just the ones, like, hey, we need to do, and they'll be like, hey, will you go over and talk to this church and go talk to them, have a chat with them. They'll call us. They'll let us know, and
they probably didn't show up to your shop thinking that kind of way.
No.
A lot of mechanics don't. No. That's very out of the ordinary for mechanic shops.
Yeah. And so for one of the things we do like at Christian Brothers, so we have a chaplain that comes to the shop, once a week and talks to the guys, and and I have an atheist on my staff. I have a couple guys that would be classified as Gnostics, and some different, and I have a few Christians. But where it's important for me, and I tell them is like, it's how we treat people, right? It's like as long as you're honest, like to a fault, and you treat people like Christ would, you won't have to worry about getting fired.
Yeah. Whether you believe in Christ or not, if you treat them like Christ would, you're good.
Yeah, if you treat them with dignity and respect, and don't get in shouting matches, don't get in. Yeah. Just be like, sir, because there's heated arguments, at our countertops at times,
and especially when it's money and it's, when people are already, you get it. People are already stretched.
Right.
Something breaks. Hey, it's the water pump. Hey, it's not the water pump. It's your entire engine. That happened to me.
Right. Yeah.
Like we thought it was one thing, and we diagnosed it.
Yeah.
And hey, we could have slapped on a water pump and called it good, and then sent you down the road. $500 lighter.
Yeah.
And then you'd be back here in 2 months with a blown engine.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of shops will do. They'll be like, oh yeah, it's like, they'll or not a lot of shops, but a few shops, they'll put that on, but they won't find the ancillary damages.
And so I know, like, so if you think it's a $500 thing and they're like, no, you need an engine, it gets your emotions up.
Yeah, it does. And so, I don't want my guy, and I've told all my guys, like, hey, they don't take abuse. If it's abusive, you just ask them to leave, kind of thing. But if they're just hot, like, because of, I was like, you just let them vent, and you empathize, you like, so I'm really sorry about that. And, but as long as it's not abusive, they're just upset, let them be upset. Yeah. Empathize, right? Like in other ways, we try to, like, sometimes if it's real catastrophic, we won't charge for that diagnostic. Because, like, you don't want to kick a guy while he's down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, when the engine is cratered, there's like, hey, we didn't charge you the $100 for the $149 for diagnostic.
For diagnostic.
Because you have a $5,000 bill looking at you.
Yeah, and so there's no charge for this, but it's you're going to need an engine.
I've also seen not just the multiplication on your side. I've seen the multiplication as the pastor of the church here. When business owners are in their sweet spot, it encourages lots of other people. I don't know if you've seen that. I have. So I just know that there's some synergy there. So when you said something about multiplication, it's like, oh man, it doesn't just happen on the business side. It absolutely happens in the church side.
I don't see it as much on my side. I just know, but that's ultimately that's my desired outcome. Yeah, is that hey, like,
it raises all the levels.
Yeah,
rising tide raises all ships, and that's what it's doing. Well, Josh, anything that you can think of?
Sure, I will ask the kind of question that I hate the most.
Okay,
because it's more of an observation that I would love to hear you agree with or disagree with.
Okay.
Christians in work, we have, from what I've seen, a pretty limited set of things that we think about as being Christian distinctives. And it's like, do you pray, and do you tithe, and do you do good work?
Go to church.
Are you honest?
Yeah.
Those are good things, right?
Right.
I think something that I heard this time that I don't know that I've heard so consistently is you have talked in a lot of different ways about having a really high view of people. It's something that reminded me of, in a lesser way, right, but of the way that God treats people. He's like, he sets us up, he gives us tasks that are at or above our capacity that he could do easily better, and then hopes and invests in us so that we can grow, right? And I from the way you look at your staff, like, I'm going to invest in them and then I'm going to hope that they kind of continue to grow, even if they grow out of the business. When I have a customer, I'm going to invest in my customers. I'm going to believe that if I'm honest with them, that they're going to respond well to that and not just take my honesty to another guy and get a cheaper job or whatever. We're going to invest in our owners, our franchisees at Christian Brothers, just kind of very consistently believing the best about people. And then it seems like that would have a lot of systemic effects. Like, I think maybe if you weren't believing the best about your staff as far as their advancement, they would be much less willing to believe the best about their customers. And I know everybody's still falling down, but to me that feels very Christian.
Yeah, and I feel it's like, part of it is I feel very fortunately blessed, like, with Christian Brothers. Like, I mean, just, with my military career and coming out, and to take that and just benefit myself, right? I feel, it's that, too much is given, much is required.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, how are you living those principles?
Sure.
If, because I have been given a lot. And so in my way, and whether they come to fruit or not, I may never see, never hear, never know. My job, I feel like more of, it's kind of like understanding where you're at in the pecking order. Right. Yeah. in like the Christian economy, I'll say.
Yeah.
Like in the way that when I say Christian economy, I say more of like how we interact with each other in relationship, not money wise.
Sure.
Right. And in that economy and how we work with each other, it is always better, right? If we even look at it from a financial standpoint, to invest in things that have the potential for growth, right?
Right.
Whether or not, like, because whether it leaves or not, because at some point it's about sowing good seeds,
right.
and even for my non-Christians, right?
Right.
Like my belief and my hope and prayer is that every one of them comes to the Lord Jesus Christ. Right. I'd love if they did it tomorrow. Right. I have no control over that. Right. So I can steer the best I can and hope for those seeds, whether I see them or not. Right. I think it's like pulling those things out of Scripture and applying them to your life. Right. A lot of ways, is saying that's how, because like investment is like, I look at it as like an economy.
Right. Yeah, it just reminds me so much of Jesus saying, whoever tries to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake. And it's like so many different ways. Like, hey, listen, I love ministry and I love to see people come to Christ, but I want to work through a church. I really want to see my guys come to faith, but I'm not going to beat them over the head with it. I'm going to show it. I would love to have the best team in the world, but I'm going to hope that those guys grow out of this place to be whatever they can be. Yeah. The franchisors have kind of treated you the same way. They're like, hey, I don't know Albuquerque super well, but these are kind of my expectations, and then you kind of got to figure it out. That's again, that just feels very Christian to me. That feels very much like Jesus. So I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Though I know that if we were to get into the practice of like, what does that mean for when a technician screws the pooch or that gets really tough. Maybe if you can talk about that. We've talked a lot about investing in people. Yeah. Tell me what can go wrong and maybe give me an example.
Yeah. So yeah. Right? Because there's going to be a lot of heartache.
Sure. I know if you want to get someone that's in charge of people to talk to you about their problems, all you have to do is ask them about their people, because that's where all the problems come from.
Right. Because, and I'll look back to it like the word, when Jesus talks about how the word's planted, right? Some lands in stony ground, some fertile, so it's very much in the same principle, right? Because like you in the same way want the just like the gospel wants the best for us, right? And you have that gospel governed life, and you're wanting to, even in this non-Christian, the answer is Christ, but at the moment you're just wanting to not buy these rims or whatever it is, it's like, buddy, you can't feed your family if you buy that, so please don't buy that. Right. Those kind of things, you're looking out for the betterment of your guys and gals, right? And I think through that, and this is the hard part, is you're gonna have to forgive and let that go, because they're going to do what they're going to do. But I would say that I would say this. It is also an amazing opportunity to understand how God feels every time you sin.
Yeah. I'm so happy that Genesis 3 is right at the front, because it takes all the pressure off. Like, hey, man, if God's kids screwed it up, my staff are probably going to do the same thing.
Right. But that, that's a part of those Christian principles. It's like, right. Like we feel pain, like, right, when our kids disappoint or we do this or we do that. Like those are same things that, like in our relationship with the Lord, that I feel like as a business owner is magnified my relationship with the Lord, because it helps me understand Him more, right, when I disappoint. Sure. And still, it's like, I'm so glad you give forgiveness so much more than I do, because I'm not the greatest at it.
Yeah. So, all right, I'll ask you the follow-on.
Yeah.
A lot of your guys are not Christians. How do you handle when you screw the pooch? Or whatever that looks like. Yeah,
100%. You own it, and you own it big. Like you don't. It's one of those things that kind of in our family, it was that way. It's like you don't put anything. You bring it out to the light. If it can survive the light, right, it'll be okay, right? And most of the time, it will. And so a lot of that times, and I've done that. I've messed up, and it was a practice that I did in the Army too, and I used to get chastised for it.
Sure, yeah. I've been there.
It's like, you don't apologize to your men. Yeah. It's like, okay, go away. But if I'm legitimately wrong, I want my guys to know it and know that, like, hey, I'm fallible. I make mistakes. Because at some point I give my guys grace too.
Right.
And and they'll give grace back, and they understand that I can make mistakes, and it makes me more human to them too. Not this empirical figure that just sits above them and points. And I think that comes back to, like, Jesus walked the walk with his 12 disciples, right? I mean, before he sent them out to do, he walked with them and showed them. And I think that that's a lot of what you got to do as a Christian business owner with that, is just walk with them.
Yeah, that's a good word. Aaron, if you had to do anything like that?
Apologize? Nope. Oh, no. Yeah. I mean,
I explained.
Yeah.
I explained how actually it wasn't anybody's fault.
It wasn't, It was just, they made me do it. Yeah. No, I think what you're describing is discipleship. And I mean, whether you're trying to lead them to Christ or you're trying to disciple them in Christ, that's what it is. Yeah,
and it's just owning it, and that's the thing. It's like, because I several examples, even in the military, I'm a sinner, and I can let my mouth, especially in the military. If you want to get guys motivated in a firefight, there's a lot of expletives that get used, and so sometimes that doesn't carry over well to the civilian world, and so. And so, like, actually when I first, and I hated doing it in the Army, like, but coming back, I had some, a little flashback here or there, and you just kind of like rage and like, oh, what are you doing? And go to your office and calm down. And then, you pull that employee in and you're just like, hey man, I was totally wrong. I want to apologize right now and tell you that I was wrong in doing that. I'm about to walk out of the shop. I wanted to apologize personally to you, and tell you I was wrong and ask for your forgiveness. And it's funny because like, with non-Christian, they just look at you like, what? What do you mean? Yeah. And most times it's just like,
I thought we're just not going to talk about it like we do
everything else.
My family
it's like, no, dude, we're going to talk about this. We're going to bring it out to the light. And I'm just going to say, hey, I'm really sorry for the way I acted. That was inappropriate and it was not okay. Yeah. And I'm about to go out there to everybody that saw it, pull them around. I'm going to have you stand right beside me and just be like, hey, the way I just talked to him was inappropriate. Right. And I apologize, and I want you guys to know that I apologized, because that's, even for me as a leader, that's not okay.
Right. Is that easier to do at the business or at the house, in your opinion? Or is it the same thing?
Yeah, it's about the same. I've done it with my kids too, and just been like, "Hey guys, come sit down. Yeah. I gotta apologize.
Dad didn't act super good.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, when I read in Romans 7, when Paul says, "Oh, wretched man that I am, who can see?" Like, I don't think he's saying that like, "Oh, I'm so bad." Right. I think he means it. I mean, you can. It's not sarcasm. It's like, I think it's a deep-seated like,
I wish I didn't act that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly have felt that way. Like honestly wish I had never said those words or did that thing, right? Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, so I hope the listeners are encouraged by this as much as I am, because I hear about the struggles at the shop, and Lance hears about the struggles at the church office, and we commiserate. Right. Yeah. The joys and the defeats and the screw ups of leading people, and so Lance has been a huge help to me what Lance won't tell you in this interview is he is one of my favorite people, and he encourages me so much in the fact that, he has full permission to call me on my junk. But he also sees, like, when he introduced me to this, hey, you grade on potential, and whenever he was on our board, he graded me on potential, and that I'd always just been graded on performance. I mean, even in sports, it's like, what did you do what did you do on Saturday? Yeah. That's how you were graded.
Right.
What have you done for me lately? Not what are you capable of doing? And so Lance has taught me a lot about that, and so I'm glad he did 20 years in the military. It's been a huge benefit to me, and really but also he's just been a huge encourager. And man, when small, like when you have that, I had to pull teeth to get people from small businesses to invest in me when I was young. I went to both the guys that eventually became my mentor. Had to like beg them, hey, would you mentor me? And they didn't, not because they didn't want to do it, is because they didn't think they had anything to offer.
Right.
I mean, these are guys that, they're big time guys, and they were both like, well, what can I teach you? It's like, so much. But when a small business owner like can encourage, like you said, encourage the pastor or the staff. I mean, just when you can do that, because you do that in your, the Army prepared you for that. Small business has kept you sharp on it. And then for you to use that for the kingdom has just been incredible. So I just want to say thanks, Lance, for coming on.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, man. Well, I think we're approaching a long interview. And so I just we're gonna close with this. So thanks, Lance, for coming. It has been incredible. If you are in the Albuquerque area, we encourage you, and you have car repair needs, and you want quality service, you want a nice difference, go to the Christian Brothers Automotive on Ventura and Paseo del Norte. Or if there's a Christian Brothers near you, highly encourage you go there and just see what it's all about. And so we just want to thank you so much for listening to the Gospel Works podcast. My name is Aaron, and for Josh, we'll see you next time.